Who really caused the sudden collapse of the Bronze Age? Welcome to CollapX, where history comes to life and every video immerses you in the fate of those who shaped the world. Today, let's head to the Renaissance, where a physician, astrologer, and poet became a legend, Michel de Nostradamus, remembered by history as Nostradamus. Author of obscure prophecies and enigmatic quatrains, he is accused by some of having predicted the future and dismissed by others as a mere charlatan. Did he really announce the Great Fire of London, the French Revolution, World War II, and even events of our time? Or are his writings just intentionally ambiguous poems that anyone can interpret as they wish? But before embarking on a new adventure, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Thank you, and have a nice trip. At the dawn of the period from 1490 to 1530, Europe was entering a major transition. Medieval wars were fading away in favor of centralized monarchies, while trade shifted from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. This era marks the beginnings of globalization, dominated by Portugal, Spain, and later England and France, who aimed to cross the oceans to increase wealth and power. In 1492, Christopher Columbus, supported by Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, reached the Caribbean, believing he had touched Asia. In 1498, Vasco da Gama rounded Africa and opened the maritime route to the Indian Ocean and the spice trade. These discoveries shifted the economic center from Venice and Genoa to the Atlantic and foreshadowed future colonial empires. Politically, Charles of Habsburg, future Charles V, inherited a vast ensemble including Spain, the Netherlands, and the Holy Roman Empire. In England, Henry VIII strengthened naval power. The Ottoman Empire under Suleiman the Magnificent reached its zenith, from the Balkan Europe to North Africa. Further east, the Safavid Empire in Persia and the Mughal Empire in India emerged, reshaping global geopolitics. The humanist Renaissance, born in Italy in the 14th century, spread throughout Europe. Rediscovery of ancient texts, openness to Greek and Arab knowledge, diffusion through the printing press perfected by Gutenberg in the 15th century, all factors feeding a new critical spirit. In this context, Copernicus began his observations, preparing the heliocentric revolution, published in 1543. The early 16th century remained marked by health crises. The plague persisted from Venice to London. In England, the sweating sickness caused sudden deaths. Medicine, still dominated by the theory of humors from Galen in the 2nd century, offered bloodletting and herbal remedies for lack of understanding the microbial origin of diseases. Spiritual life experienced significant upheavals. At the end of the 15th century, critics targeted the Catholic Church, accused of moral relaxation and excesses in the sale of indulgences. The humanist Erasmus advocated a return to evangelical simplicity and better knowledge of sacred texts. In 1517, Martin Luther published his 95 Theses in Wittenberg, challenging the Pope's authority and triggering a religious crisis that spread across Europe. While the Reformation called for a reorganization of the ecclesiastical institution, esoteric circles developed Christian Kabbalah and Hermetic speculation, notably in Florence around Marsilio Ficino. Between 1490 and 1530, this turmoil foreshadowed future confessional conflicts and the Counter-Reformation. Meanwhile, trade shifted from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Venice and Genoa lost their monopoly on luxury goods, challenged by the Portuguese and Spanish caravels. The Portuguese established trading posts in Africa, then in the Indian Ocean, controlling pepper and spices in Goa and Malacca. The Spanish, after discovering the New World, conquered Central and South America. Gold and silver from Peru and Mexico enriched the Spanish monarchy. The Atlantic powers prevailed, while Italy, although commercially weakened, remained an artistic and financial center. At the same time, printing spreads after Gutenberg's invention in Mainz around 1450. Paris, Rome, Basel, Antwerp, and other cities become centers of book production. Translations of ancient and Arabic texts, as well as works on mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, circulate widely. This movement nurtures humanism, founded on the study of classical languages. Scholars like Johann Reuchlin and Guillaume Boudet correct the Latin versions of fundamental texts and encourage direct reading of sources. Centers such as the University of Alcalá de Henares in Castile and the Collège de France in Paris attract the best minds to renew European knowledge. The fight against epidemics, mainly against the plague, inspires the first forms of public health in the hardest-hit cities. In northern Italy, Milan and Venice implement quarantines to isolate the sick and control the entry of suspicious travelers. Lazarettos appear in ports to limit the spread. In France, some doctors recommend distancing corpses and purifying the air with fumigations, but traditional beliefs persist. Minorities and the alignment of stars are often blamed for calamities. In the British Isles, the sweating sickness causes fear and prompts the royal court to impose rudimentary hygiene measures. Everywhere, responses remain uneven. Houses forcibly closed, fires for contaminated belongings, deserted streets. The fear of an invisible evil reveals the limits of a medicine still trapped in the Galenic schema and lacking a theory of contagion. In the Holy Roman Empire, Luther spreads his theses thanks to printing and challenges papal authority. Supported by some princes, he sparks a doctrinal debate echoed beyond borders. At the same time, esoteric texts spread Christian Kabbalah and Florentine alchemy, appealing to those seeking to reconcile the mysteries of faith with new, rational approaches. The first half of the 16th century thus sees the clash of medieval heritage and new aspirations, preparing for upcoming confessional fractures and nourishing the flourishing of mystical currents. At the beginning of the 16th century, France experiences great political and cultural upheavals. Louis XII, who reigns until 1515, inherits a tradition of centralization, but must deal with great feudatories and territorial complexities. He seeks to strengthen his authority in Provence and prepares for the Italian wars, motivated by Valois claims in northern Italy and the lure of the peninsula's riches. In January 1515, Francis Theodore succeeds Louis X. He wants to reconquer Italian territories and assert his prestige. His victory at Marignano in September 1515 secures Lombardy and lasting glory for him. His Italian campaigns, logistically demanding, also favor contacts with scholars and artists. The royal patronage benefits. Leonardo da Vinci, invited to the court, embodies this cultural exchange. Provence, attached to the French monarchy since the late 15th century, participates in the kingdom's growth while maintaining its specificities. Avignon, still under papal control, and Arles, a drapery center, count among the economic poles. A fertile and prosperous land, the region nonetheless experiences social tensions. Jewish minorities, often forcibly converted, retain an ambiguous status, while families from the Iberian diaspora gradually integrate. Provençal, an Occitan language, remains predominant in cities and villages. French, imposed in administration and justice, is spreading, however. Local elites adopt it to get closer to central power, playing the role of linguistic mediators. This coexistence reflects both an attachment to traditions and a desire to participate in the monarchical state. The Parliament of Aix, created at the end of the 15th century, becomes an essential instrument of the monarchy. The regional equivalent of the Parliament of Paris, it dispenses justice in the king's name. Its magistrates, from the robed nobility, arbitrate conflicts, validate transactions, and apply edicts. Its role grows under Francis I. The Provençal economic life is driven by brotherhoods and guilds. The drapers of Avignon trade with Italy. The fishermen of Marseille and La Ciotat supply the region with fish, while navigators and merchants transport oil, cereals, and salt. Arles attracts major merchants thanks to its fairs, where Occitan and French meet. The presence of Jewish populations converted over several generations raises issues of integration and mistrust. Long confined to specific neighborhoods, these families of doctors, artisans, or moneylenders seek to blend into Christian society. Some franchise their names, while others keep traces of their origins. The conversions, often obtained under religious pressure, do not guarantee full social acceptance. However, in Renaissance Provence, cultural exchanges multiply, and many converts play a notable economic role. Under Louis XIII and Francis I, the university system is booming, although it varies according to the cities. The arts faculties, the first cycle, teach grammar, rhetoric, and logic. Future doctors, lawyers, and theologians then continue in specialized faculties. In Aix, the law faculty attracts students from all over the kingdom, while Montpellier remains renowned for its medical teaching, inherited from the Arab and Greek tradition. Medicine is then based on Galenic principles, transmitted by Latin translations and by Avicenna or Rhazes. A rivalry opposes doctors, trained at the university and holders of prestigious knowledge, and apothecaries, artisans responsible for preparing remedies. Urban statutes are strict. Apothecaries must respect manufacturing rules and may advise the sick, but cannot call themselves doctors. This distinction provokes tensions in the Provençal towns. The court of France simultaneously encourages a cultured and artistic culture. Francis III protects scholars, humanists, and artists. Scholarly meetings are held in Blois, Amboise, but also in Provence during royal stays. Court astrologers gain fame thanks to the new printed editions of Greco-Arabic texts. Lunar calendars, used to predict agricultural seasons, political and religious events, circulate widely and reflect a fascination with celestial phenomena. Popular prophecies also mark intellectual life. The stories about Joan of Arc, heroine of the 100 Years' War, maintain admiration for the divine instrument of France's salvation. The legends of the Mage Merlin, originating from the Matter of Britain, feed the collective imagination. In Provence, minstrels and storytellers disseminate these stories, mixing local traditions, Celtic motifs, and popular superstitions. The printing press spreads rapidly in the kingdom. Workshops are established or developed in Lyon, Avignon, and in other Provençal cities. Legal, medical treaties, and religious works are often printed under royal privilege. Traveling booksellers sell almanacs and books of piety at fairs. The high price limits access to reading, but the attraction to new textual and scientific developments grows among clerics as well as some wealthy merchants. In this context, astronomers and astrologers gain importance. The kings of France consult sky experts to guide wars and alliances. In the provinces, people scrutinized the stars to predict epidemics and events. Lunar eclipses, feared, arouse vivid interpretations. While peasants rely on them as signs, scholars seek more precise calculation methods. Michel de Nostradamus, the future Nostradamus, is born on December 14, 1503, in Saint-Rémy de Provence, a small town in the southeast of France. It is located at the foot of the Alpes Hills, in a Mediterranean landscape of vineyards, cereals, olive trees, and sheep farming. The inhabitants, paced by religious festivals and seasonal fairs, sell wool, wine, oil, and dried fruits. The urban center is organized around the church and the market. At the beginning of the 16th century, Provence, heir to Narbonnese Gaul, retains traces of its Roman past, notably in Glanum with the Triumphal Arch and the Mausoleum of the Antiques. The region is now under the suzerainty of the kings of France, but retains a strong local identity. Ecclesiastical Latin, and especially Languedoc, with Provençal accents are spoken, while scholarly French is reserved for administrative and scholarly circles. Society is organized around trades, with notables, lawyers, and magistrates in the Parliament of Aix, but peasants make up the majority of the population. Michel is born into a family of Jewish origin, an essential element for understanding his journey. His paternal ancestors, the Gasconnais, converted to Catholicism over several generations in the south of France. His grandfather, Guy Gasconnet, adopted the first name Louis at his baptism, then took on the surname Nostradamus, or Notre Dame. This change reflects the desire of many Provençal Jews to integrate while facing persecution, confiscations, and royal edicts that restricted their rights. In the Avignon region, communities faced expulsions and pressures, with conversions resulting in name changes and a reorganization of solidarities. Michel's father, Pierre de Nostradamus, was probably a notary or a modest notable, though his precise functions remain uncertain. He married Renière, known as Renée, from Saint-Rémy, who came from a rustic or noble lineage. His maternal grandfather, Jean de Saint-Rémy, was reputed to be an astrologer and astronomer. At the beginning of the 16th century, astrology was considered a science integrated into the university liberal arts. It served medicine, the establishment of agricultural calendars, and the choice of treatment periods, as medicine and astrology were not yet separated. Michel grew up in Saint-Rémy, in a modest but not poor house. His early years were marked by the influence of Jean de Saint-Rémy, who taught him Latin and the Ptolemaic cosmology, according to which the Earth is at the center of the universe and the planets, including the sun and the moon, revolve around it. This vision, inherited from antiquity, dominated until the Copernican revolution in the mid-16th century. In his education, lessons in astronomy were mixed with strong religious fervor, as his parents, recently converted, were keen to affirm their status as Christians. The rare moments of leisure allowed Michel to discover the countryside of Saint-Rémy. The vine, essential to the local economy, provided wine consumed locally and sold in neighboring towns. The harvest, a popular celebration, brought together families and neighbors. Olive oil remained precious, while flocks of sheep provided sought-after wool. As a child, Michel observed these activities, heard discussions about prices, and began to understand the agricultural and commercial realities of his homeland. The evenings were animated with orally transmitted Provençal legends, fairies, witches, dragons, knights, or saints. The figure of Saint Martha, said to have driven away the Tarasque near Tarascon, fueled the imagination of the children. In this climate, Michel developed a sensitivity to symbolism and prophecy. Religious processions punctuated the year, praying to Saint Roch to ward off diseases and organizing public penances to ward off the plague. These practices deeply marked his childhood. The memory of the Great Plague of 1348 still haunted the minds. At the turn of the 16th century, resurgences of the disease reignited terror. In Saint-Remy, stories were told of families decimated in a few days. Juniper was burned, houses were sprinkled with vinegar, and processions with blessed candles were organized. Some fraternities practiced self-flagellation, convinced that only God could save them. In this context, astrology took on a practical dimension, to predict the movements of the planets, but also to anticipate plagues and catastrophes. Michel's education by Jean de Saint-Remy thus went beyond astronomy to include this cosmic vision of men's destinies. To what extent Michel learned Hebrew or retained remnants of a Jewish family culture is unknown. Out of prudence in the face of persecution, part of this heritage may have remained hidden. The family, converted to Catholicism, nonetheless displayed their faith, regular services, baptisms, respect for the liturgical calendar, participation in masses, and support for the parish. Baptismal records confirm that Michel received the sacrament according to canonical forms, which later spared him suspicion in university and medical circles. His studies were based on memorization and recitation of Latin texts, Virgil, Ovid, Ptolemy. The teacher corrected any fault in conjugation or pronunciation. Jean de Saint-Remy taught him to draw concentric circles representing the trajectories of the planets. By candlelight, the shadows animating the walls conferred a mystical dimension to the lessons. Michel, fascinated, perhaps already perceived the seed of esoteric knowledge that would nourish his future writings. Walks around Saint-Remy lead the child to rural chapels, isolated farmhouses, or repurposed Roman ruins. In the countryside, he notices prehistoric menhirs, to which the peasants still attribute powers, healing or curse, depending on the time they are touched. These beliefs, orally transmitted, arouse both curiosity and critical thinking in Michel, who is already seeking to understand popular traditions, foreshadowing his future research on remedies and the joint influence of stars and plants. His first encounters with medicine occur early in childhood, faced with the practices of local healers. In Saint-Remy, the country doctor is often replaced by a barber surgeon or a bone setter. Apothecaries offer ointments made from sage, rosemary, or lavender. Michel, eager for knowledge, takes an interest in the virtues of these simples. Provence indeed offers a rich pharmacopoeia. The garrigue contains antiseptic or soothing herbs, and the distillation of waters and herbal extracts, inherited from Arab tradition via Spain and Italy, has been practiced there for a long time. Simultaneously, his education includes Latin and astronomy, but also an openness to the world. Traveling merchants from Italy or Spain bring spices, fabrics, pigments, and news. Discoveries beyond the Atlantic, artistic boom in Italy, European wars. These often imprecise stories nurture the collective imagination and Michel's curiosity, reinforced by the intellectual rigor of his grandfather, shaping a mind turned towards observation. But being a new Christian requires caution and conformity. Converts from Judaism fear any liturgical or doctrinal deviation that could arouse suspicion or accusations of heresy. While the French Inquisition is less severe than in Spain, witchcraft or deviation trials multiply. The family ensures Michel masters Catholic dogmas and rites. His grandfather, Jean de Saint-Remy, acts both as a guarantor of religious orthodoxy and as a transmitter of astrological knowledge, giving the young boy a dual lineage: Christian faith, Jewish heritage, and scholarly practices. Around the age of 10, Michel already knows how to read and transcribe Latin excerpts, aided by rudimentary grammar and rhetoric lessons. He does not attend a communal school or ecclesiastical college. Learning is done at home or with a private tutor. Writing is done on wax tablets before copying important texts onto parchment. Printed books are still rare in Provence, despite Gutenberg's invention in the mid-15th century. Michel, thanks to his grandfather and a few notable people, probably consults astrology, sacred texts, or botany books, a sign of early erudition. The rural environment also educates him. He participates in daily tasks, learns the agricultural cycles, weather omens, and the medicinal use of plants. This empirical knowledge completes his education and makes him perceive the cyclical dimension of nature, marked in Provence by the sun, the Mistral, and religious processions against the plague or for good harvests. He observes the artisans' tools and local religious frescoes, interpreted as divine signs. His astrologer grandfather might encourage him to relate these images to the reading of the stars. Shooting stars, miracles, or animal anomalies are perceived as messages of a higher plan. This vision, nourished by religion and superstition, prepares his mind for future prophecies. At the beginning of the 16th century, progress is slow, hindered by the scarcity of books, but the humanist Renaissance spreads Greco-Arabic texts in Provence. Works by Hippocrates and Avicenna circulate, as well as botanical and astronomical treatises accessible to some notables. The family plays a central role. Pierre de Nostradamus protects assets and maintains good relations with the clergy, while Rainier provides moral and religious education. The memory of past persecutions and the transition from the name Gasconnet to Nostradamus forge in Michel a sense of plural identity. Finally, the starry nights of Provence fuel his fascination. Alongside Jean de Saint-Remy, he learns to recognize constellations, to follow Saturn, Jupiter, or Venus, and to relate them to the harvests. Initiated into reading ephemerides and planetary tables, he is already combining astronomical calculations and prophetic intuition, foreshadowing his future fame. Rumors of violence against converts, though tempered in Saint-Remy, can sometimes be heard in Avignon, a longtime papal territory. Growing up, Michel discovers that freedom of conscience is not guaranteed. Europe, soon shaken by the Reformation, sees the writings of humanists like Erasmus circulate among a few learned individuals in Provence, but the child focuses primarily on nature, classical texts, and family assistance. Mention of his astrologer grandfather elicits various reactions: distinction for some, suspicion for others. However, Jean de Saint-Remy enjoys enough respect to pass on his art to Michel without causing rejection. Astronomy is useful for calculating religious festivals, but astrology, by claiming to predict the future, remains suspect. It attracts nobles and patrons, but exposes one to accusations of magic in case of failure. A precocious child, Michel understands the importance of discretion. His progress in Latin, his astrological readings, and the observation of Provençal festivals and legends feed his thirst for knowledge. Born on December 14, 1503, he grows up in a rural Provence, marked by plague, famine, processions, and harvests. His unique perspective, influenced by Christian piety and Jewish heritage, sharpens through contact with his elders and maternal grandfather. In 1520, as Europe experiences epidemic outbreaks, Michel de Nostradamus begins his studies at the Trinité College in Avignon. The city, heir to its papal past, lives in fear of contagion. The liberal arts are taught there: grammar, rhetoric, logic, music, rudiments of natural sciences and medicine, in a strict discipline dominated by religion. The plague returns in 1520, causing panic and school closures. Authorities strengthen controls at the gates, wealthy families flee, and teachers desert. Doctors and notables recommend fumigations and perfumes to purify the air. Michel witnesses the severity of a pandemic for the first time, a decisive experience for his future interest in medicine. In a Europe marked by epidemics, the idea of specializing in disease control gains importance. Michel de Nostradamus chooses Montpellier, one of the most prestigious medical centers in the West at the beginning of the 16th century. Founded in the 13th century, the university had incorporated Arab, Greek, and Latin traditions, creating a unique intellectual hub. In 1522, Michel makes his montée, a term highlighting the geographical and intellectual elevation of the journey. Like all students, he first takes an entrance oath, called the Imbert Oath. From his first year, he discovers the rivalry between graduated doctors, strict adherents of the Galenic heritage, and apothecaries, practitioners holding concrete knowledge of remedy fabrication. Fascinated by pharmacopoeia, Michel is interested in both medical theories and practices related to plants, spices, and extraction techniques. The curriculum emphasizes great ancient authors such as Hippocrates and Galen, but also Avicenna, an 11th century polymath born in Uzbekistan, author of the famous Canon of Medicine. Students must identify herbs, roots, and barks in Latin, and relate them to the theory of the four humors: yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. Field courses complete this learning with direct observation of medicinal plants. Meanwhile, medical astrology holds a central place. Each sign of the zodiac is associated with a part of the body, and it is believed that a doctor must know how to read celestial configurations to choose the timing of bloodletting or treatment. Montpellier thus trains its students in the medical use of Greek and Arabic astronomical calculations. Michel, passionate, sees it as a way to understand the spread of epidemics and the onset of diseases. This curiosity quickly leads him to bend the rules. Although the faculty forbids students from practicing the art of apothecaries without a diploma, Michel is already sought after by notables impressed by his botanical and astrological knowledge. He composes syrups, ointments, and decoctions, allowing him to gain valuable practical experience. But this premature activity arouses the disapproval of several doctors, who accuse him of usurping the role of an apothecary. The faculty, concerned with maintaining its authority, pronounced a temporary expulsion around 1523 or 1524. Michel had to momentarily leave the university, a painful ordeal for a mind eager for knowledge. But this sanction did not diminish his determination. At the time, the medical university system remained rigid. Privileges and degrees were jealously preserved, and any transgression severely punished. He eventually rejoined the faculty, likely thanks to the support of professors or influential figures aware of his potential. During the second part of his curriculum, he caught up on missed classes and had to pass exams rich in classical references. Anatomy still relied on ancient doctors, mixed with astrological considerations, and dissections were rare. The curriculum notably included Galenica lessons, where entire passages of Galen, a 2nd century physician regarded as the supreme authority, were copied and commented on. In 1525, Michel de Nostradamus obtained his medical baccalaureate, marking the end of the first cycle. The bachelor could practice to a certain extent, sometimes under supervision, while the doctor had full legitimacy to teach and write treatises. This diploma allowed Michel to be called master and offer consultations, notably around Montpellier, often alongside reputable doctors who appreciated his knowledge of plants. As early as 1526, plague epidemics resurfaced in France. Newly graduated doctors were mobilized in the most affected areas. Archives report Michel's presence in several localities in the southwest, notably Bordeaux and Toulouse. The attempts at containment remained limited: closed doors, quarantines, religious processions, while doctors burned herbs or had people wear masks impregnated with essences. Michel, leveraging his experience, recommended stricter hygiene rules, airing rooms, and using ointments made from local plants, macerated in strong alcohols. His association with apothecaries introduced him to the antiseptic virtues attributed to thyme, rosemary, and sage. In the field, he also learned to manage the panic of residents, often ready to flee, abandoning their sick relatives. In the records of those years, there are accounts mentioning the support Michel de Nostradamus provided to charitable confraternities in Bordeaux, known for assisting plague victims when most would flee. He collaborated with young doctors and faced criticism from traditionalist practitioners, some deeming his potions non-conforming to the Galenic canon. However, others noted that the mortality rate dropped in certain neighborhoods where he intervened. Michel described the buboes, fevers, chills, and chest pains, and observed that patients receiving dietary care and soothing remedies survived more than those left without help. In Toulouse, where authorities organized makeshift hospitals, Michel faced heavier bureaucracy. The parliament imposed strict rules and required expert opinions. Nonetheless, a municipal record mentions, Master Michel de Nostradamus, bachelor in medicine from the University of Montpellier, intervenes in our suburbs, a sign of his official recognition in the anti-plague missions. He observed the epidemic, advised protective measures in markets, and suspected that handling imported textiles or wool promoted the spread without yet knowing about bacteria. Between 1526 and 1528, Michel experienced an intensive apprenticeship. He combined the use of medicinal plants, dietary regimes, and religious rituals, while adapting his discourse to popular beliefs. In Bordeaux, he allied with caregivers open to experimentation. In Toulouse, he advocated for better water and waste management to limit insalubrity. His initial missions, although limited given the scale of the scourge, enhanced his reputation in the south of France. Wealthy families began to consult him, intrigued by his methods deemed both prophetic and scientific, while tension persisted between proponents of Arab knowledge and defenders of scholastic orthodoxy. Michel occasionally returned to Montpellier to exchange with his masters and consult translations of Avicenna, Albucasis, or Rhazes. He assimilated Galenic theory, but increasingly favored direct experience with the sick, a daring attitude for the time and characteristic of the emerging Renaissance. The years 1520-1528 mark a fundamental stage. A student in Avignon, then a bachelor in medicine in 1525, Michel then faces the brutality of epidemics in the southwest. His first practices as a plague doctor in Bordeaux and Toulouse shape his empirical approach and his confrontation with rigid institutions, prefiguring his exceptional career. Between 1529 and 1534, Michel travels throughout the southwest, notably in Rouergue and Périgord. Various contemporaries highlight these regular travels, which earn him the nickname Doctor of Plagues. He rejects massive bloodletting and ineffective powders, preferring instead the observation of symptoms and the strengthening of the sick, which he considers decisive in increasing survival chances. Bubonic plague, marked by purulent buboes under the armpits or groin, regularly wipes out villages and households. Lacking an understanding of its transmission, authorities struggle to contain it. Inspired by Italian and Arab doctors, Nostradamus recommends a light purge rather than the massive evacuations of Galenic tradition. He insists on airing out rooms, against the common advice advocating confinement and closed windows. In the southwest, he becomes known for his pink pastilles made from rose hips, sometimes enriched with cloves or cinnamon. Distributed to the sick and their families, they offer psychological comfort more than real protection. Meanwhile, Nostradamus observes local mortality, noting the age of victims, their living conditions, and the initial clinical signs. Chronicler Jean de Ferrière describes his rounds in Rouergue, praising his precision. Nostradamus already suspects transmission by contact with tainted fluids, a bold hypothesis in the face of the dominant miasma theory. This intuition informs his caution regarding contaminated linens. His method includes the use of spirits to clean corpses, an initiative considered scandalous by Galenists, but perceived by inhabitants as protective, with some noting fewer contagions. His travels take him from small towns like Villefranche-de-Rouergue to cities like Cahors or Sarlat. He recommends isolating the sick, destroying infected sheets, and meticulously notes in his notebooks the severity of epidemics. These precautions bolster his reputation, and municipal councils seek his advice. As his reputation grows, both notables and religious figures seek out Nostradamus. He advises limiting gatherings, using aromatic herb fumigations, and installing braziers in alleyways to purify the air. These measures, sometimes ineffective, nonetheless reassure the population. Bells toll unceasingly to announce the dead, and Nostradamus refines his pragmatic approach in the face of the disaster's magnitude. He observes delusional fevers, rapid deaths, piled corpses. He urges families to wash clothes and utensils in boiling water, intuiting the importance of disinfection. The Galenists accuse him of breaking with tradition, but his results are visible. Several communities report a decrease in cases. Without modern scientific explanations, his pragmatism saves lives. Some doctors denounce his lack of a diploma, recalling his expulsion from Montpellier, but his practices are convincing. In Périgord, volunteers trained by him clean the streets with vinegar. Municipal records note reduced mortality. Gradually, public opinion becomes favorable. He confronts the plague where it strikes hardest. His detailed annotations record symptom dates, disease duration, and recovery rates. Rare for the time, these data allow comparison of epidemics by location. He notes a slowdown in winter and emphasizes the influence of environmental factors, while few of his peers are interested in statistics. In Bergerac, he reportedly saved a family by prescribing handkerchiefs soaked in rose, vinegar, and myrrh. The anecdote spreads up to Bordeaux, enhancing his fame. Mocked by traditionalists, these aromatic remedies nonetheless seem to soothe certain communities, strengthening his prestige far beyond Périgord. Several parishes invite Nostradamus to recite Latin prayers to give hope to the sick. He specifies that he is only a healer, not a man of the church, but insists on the spiritual comfort, as the plague is seen as a divine punishment. Taken to task by jealous priests, he also receives support from moderate religious figures. The processions persist, despite the risks. He proposes to divide the faithful into small groups, a measure rarely adopted before him. In Rouergue, the Chronicle of Jean de Ferrières describes his work with the poorest. He visits the bourrios, miserable quarters that promote contagion, observes the sudden appearance of buboes and the rapid onset of fever. He advises burying the corpses immediately after death, a recommendation initially contested, but then applied in some towns. The chronicler also mentions the free distribution of pink lozenges, a sign of his charity. In 1532, while staying in Agen, notables from Corcy call upon him in the face of a plague outbreak. He leaves immediately with his notes and remedies. On the spot, he observes that the piling of damp fabrics harbors parasites. He recommends airing out the storages and suspending transactions. Despite resistance, some comply, and a decline in hospitalizations is later observed. His journals, now lost, likely mentioned these initiatives. The preserved excerpts show his attention to remedies and their context, the state of roads, funeral customs, housing, local resources. He notes that the plague mainly strikes families confined to closed spaces and explains that confined air enhances bad emanations. Without modern vocabulary, he nonetheless senses that ventilation reduces contamination. At the end of his tours in the Southwest, Nostradamus gains a particular status, empirical healer and methodical forerunner. Trained in Montpellier, inspired by Arabic texts and his own observations, he favors direct dialogue with the population. His adapted solutions gain traction, and his nickname, Doctor of the Plagues, becomes established. The following years further confirm his renown. In the mid-1530s, Michel de Nostradamus, a young doctor experienced in treating the plague, settles in Agen, a prosperous city in southwestern France crossed by the Garonne. Trained in Avignon and Montpellier, he hopes to find stability and a favorable climate for his research. Notables, concerned with enhancing the cultural and scientific prestige of the city, encourage him to settle there. Shortly after his arrival, Michel marries a young woman from the local bourgeoisie, probably Henriette d'Ancos, nicknamed the Beautiful Agenoise. The marriage, celebrated according to Christian customs, arouses the curiosity of the inhabitants. The couple settles in a typical timber-framed house of the region, where Michel sets up a space for his medical research. Starting in 1535, political stability and commercial exchanges favor the supply of medicinal herbs. The couple has 2 children, probably born in 1536 and 1537, but their names remain uncertain. Fatherhood strengthens Michel's attachment to the community and his desire to improve his remedies. He perfects his pink lozenges, made from rosehip, rich in vitamin C, which bolster his reputation among the sick and local authorities. Eager to innovate, he deviates from university dogmas while respecting the prescriptions of the faculty of Montpellier to avoid criticism from traditionalist colleagues. Michel's family enjoys a certain affluence thanks to his fees and Henriette's inheritance, which allows the acquisition of fine furniture and the employment of servants. In the center of Agen, where merchants, artisans, jurists, and ecclesiastics cross paths, the doctor's reputation draws patients sometimes from other provinces. Michel studies works from Italy, notably Avicenna and Hippocrates, and experiments with innovative methods blending rigorous hygiene and antiseptic plants. Nevertheless, he remains faithful to religious practices, praying for divine protection against the risk of epidemic. The inhabitants of Agen, mostly Catholic, accept him despite his converted Jewish origins. In 1538, a resurgence of the plague struck the southwest of France. Despite quarantines and sulfur fumigations, the infection spread. Michel applied his disinfection methods, his light purges, and his pink lozenges. But the epidemic proved particularly virulent: high fevers, buboes, and rapid deaths. Henriette was affected, followed by the couple's 2 children. Michel tried all possible treatments in vain. Henriette succumbed after several days of agony, soon followed by the children. The grief overwhelmed Michel. His neighbors described a wandering man, consumed by the guilt of not having saved his family. Agen also lived in mourning, marked by prayers and the tolling of funeral bells. Michel abruptly lost the stability he had built. His silent house now symbolized the fragility of existence. Shaken in his faith and aware of the limits of medicine, he confronted the impotence of man against the plague. As the plague receded in 1538, Michel became the target of rumors. Some residents, suspicious of his practices that mixed Arabic science and astrology, doubted his religious orthodoxy. In a context of increased surveillance by the church, he was accused of heresy, perhaps by jealous competitors or a strict preacher. The records of Agen mention a complaint, followed by a brief hearing before an ecclesiastical court, with no conviction due to lack of evidence or thanks to his supporters in the medical field. Tried by the loss of his family and undermined by these suspicions, Michel realized the fragility of his situation. In 1539, he left Agen with some books and memories. Some say he found refuge in monasteries or returned to the university path. His reputation as a plague doctor remained, but he left broken, driven by a desire to understand the origin of the scourge and already at odds with the faculty's dogmas. The death of Henriette and his children remained an irreparable wound. In 1539, marked by these trials, Michel de Nostradamus embarked on a journey that transformed his worldview. Eager to flee his past, he traveled international routes to enrich his culture and broaden his medical reasoning. His itinerary led him to northern Italy, in city-states famous for their intellectual and artistic vibrancy. This period was sparsely documented but decisive. It demonstrated an individual quest for knowledge, fueled by an insatiable curiosity and a need for renewal. His first notable stop took him to Milan, still marked by the Sforza influence and boasting several printing workshops. There, Michel met scholars, translators, and humanists in a context of intense commercial exchanges between Lombardy and Europe. In cafes and private libraries, people debated recent geographical discoveries, Portuguese explorations, and religious reforms from the north. He connected with scribes and proofreaders linked to the printing industry and consulted rare works, German astronomy treatises, and Aristotle's commentaries. This stay strengthened his knowledge in astrology, a field he had practiced since his apprenticeship with his grandparents. He then moved to Venice, a powerful maritime republic and a major cultural Mediterranean hub. The city, renowned for the freedom granted to printers, saw the circulation of ancient and Byzantine manuscripts. Michel met Luca Garrico, a renowned Italian astrologer, author of Ephemerides, allowing the calculation of the daily positions of the stars. Garrico taught him more precise calculation techniques and innovative mathematical models. The two men exchanged views on the connections between planetary motions and political events, which nourished Michel's reflection on the articulation between exact sciences and divination. He also frequented Aldus Manutius' circle, a great editor of the Renaissance and pioneer of the pocket-sized book. His editions, marked by the emblem of the dolphin and anchor, were distributed all over Europe. There, Michel discovered translations of Hippocrates, Galen, and Arabic medicine, as well as esoteric works related to alchemy, cosmic harmony, and Christian Kabbalah, which interprets the Bible according to numerical and symbolic correspondences. In Venice, he also learns about tarot, used not only as a game, but also as a medium for meditation and divination. The allegorical figures, the juggler, the empress, the moon, fuel his imagination and his astrological studies. He also absorbs the ideas of Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, a 15th century humanist philosopher whose theses reconciling Platonism, Kabbalah, and Christianity deeply influenced Italian scholarly circles. After several months in Venice, Michel heads to Mantua, renowned for the artistic patronage of the Gonzaga family. The brilliant court attracts poets, painters, and musicians. Although Michel is just passing through, he engages with intellectuals interested in Hermeticism, astrology, and archetypal symbolism. These discussions, though poorly documented, enrich his thinking and foreshadow his project of writing texts that are both cryptic and intended for a wide audience. At the end of his Italian journey, Michel returns to France and stops in Agen, where he reunites with Julius Caesar Scaliger, a Franco-Italian humanist renowned for his treatises on the Latin language, literature, and philology. Together, they discuss sacred chronology, Chaldean myths, and ancient origins. Scaliger impresses Michel with his rigor and the idea of confronting sacred texts, mythical stories, and empirical data. This brief stay motivates Michel to organize his notes, to draw inspiration from Scaliger's critical method, and to combine it with the Hermetic approaches seen in Italy. He also continues practicing medicine, treating rural families, and gathering new observations on diseases and their spread. To return to Provence, Michel passes through Lyon, a commercial crossroads and a hub of humanism. He discovers the intense activity of printers such as Sébastien Griffe and the de Tournes family. He consults recent works and takes an interest in the first almanacs, which blend meteorological forecasts, religious festivals, and agricultural information, often adorned with zodiac signs. Michel sees in them a way to disseminate both astrological knowledge and medical advice, and he considers composing such writings himself. In Lyon, he stocks up on paper, inks, and humanist treatises, while observing the importance of typography, illustrations, and competition among publishers in spreading ideas. In the mid-1540s, the physician and astrologer, marked by his travels and trials, retreats to Provence. He chooses Salon de Provence, a prosperous city located between the Mediterranean and the Rhone Valley, known for its trade in oil, wheat, soap, and salt. The city attracts notables, merchants, and professionals. Famous for his remedies against the plague, he finds a favorable reception among wealthy families. In 1544, he decides to settle there permanently. Still single, he rents a modest house where he prepares his remedies based on herbs, rosehip, and recipes from the Arab pharmacopoeia. His clientele quickly expands, soliciting his care not only for the plague, but also for fevers and common ailments. His empirical approach, bordering on the Galenic tradition, arouses the mistrust of some colleagues, but his reputation grows. By 1546, when a plague epidemic strikes the region, he recommends airing houses, fumigating with aromatic herbs, and taking lozenges made from dried petals. His methods catch the attention of correspondents. It is during this period that he meets Anne Ponsard, from a wealthy merchant family who owns a flour mill. The marriage takes place in 1547. Widowed from a first wife and children who died in Agen during an epidemic, he sees in this union an opportunity to start a new family. The dowry allows for the purchase of a large house on Rue Hoche, one of the busiest streets in Salon. It is distinguished by a pentagonal tower, rare in the region, where he sets up a laboratory. The windows, oriented to capture light, also facilitate the observation of the stars, essential to his astrological activity. In his tower, the owner establishes a research universe. The ground floor houses a furnace with alembics for distilling medicinal ointments and syrups. Upstairs, he keeps plants and botanical specimens, including herbals brought back from his travels in northern Italy and the southwest. He also gathers ancient texts on the virtues of minerals, the correspondences between macrocosm and microcosm, and the calculation of the movement of the planets. The upper levels serve for sky observation, where he attempts, with simple instruments, to improve his predictions by confronting Ptolemy and knowledge from the Arab world. The botanical garden completes the ensemble. Anne Ponsard likely oversees the planting and maintenance. The regular arrangement facilitates the quick harvesting of medicinal species: sage, thyme, lemon balm, roses, fruit trees. Some vegetables ensure the daily meals, while the family mill provides flour and additional income, guaranteeing the couple's economic solidity. In 1546 and 1547, a new plague strikes Provence. Parish records testify to a sudden increase in burials. The physician then writes a now-lost treatise, the Brief Treatise on the Preparation of Rose Hip Jam. Mentioned by contemporaries, it explained how to strengthen the body with a preparation made from rose hips, macerated in sugar syrup, and seasoned with spices. Physicians from Toulouse and Montpellier showed interest in it, although its large-scale production is not confirmed. In Salon de Provence, afflicted by the epidemic, the population sees him as an innovative practitioner. Without claiming doctrinal authority, he relies on his observations, recommends hygiene and isolation of the sick, fumigations, a moderate diet, and criticizes excessive bloodletting. His influence extends to Aix and Arles. In this context, Anne Ponsard plays a crucial role. She manages the purchase of stills, the reception of plants, and the financing of works. A small team of domestic workers ensures cleanliness, distributes vials, and conducts inventory in adherence to strict hygiene rules to limit contagion. As the plague recedes toward the end of 1547, Anne gives birth to a first child. 6 children are born up until the early 1550s. Records remain unclear regarding names and dates, but most survive despite high infant mortality, thanks likely to special medical attention. Wet nurses from the neighboring countryside provide their nourishment, while the father ensures infections are limited through fumigations and strict cleanliness. The couple enjoys a comfortable financial situation thanks to medical consultations, the sale of remedies, revenue from the mill, and modest royalties received from astrological almanacs. Before his prophecies, he already publishes annual forecasts, printed in Lyon or Avignon. planetary conjunctions, agricultural advice, seasonal warnings. This activity increases his popularity while complementing his medical practice, with most patients judging him primarily on his practical effectiveness. The house on Rue Hoche attracts merchants, peasants, aristocrats, or enthusiasts of potions. In his office, the physician asks for the date, place, and hour of birth to determine the influence of the stars, a method considered unorthodox by his peers, but which enhances his reputation. Word of mouth fuels the image of an erudite, mysterious, and effective practitioner. The Provençal countryside provides medicinal herbs and agricultural resources. Lavender, rosemary, fennel, and other aromatic plants are used in ointments, while wheat fields managed by sharecroppers ensure supply. These incomes allow the upkeep of the home and the purchase of books. Anne oversees the children's education, reading, arithmetic, and religion. Taking advantage of this stability, the physician writes several texts between his consultations. He uses the printing workshops of Lyon and Provence to distribute booklets. Lyon, a European crossroads, ensures wider circulation of his works. In his margins, he sometimes cites Salon de Provence, which he describes as a haven for the study of herbs and the contemplation of stars. He maintains correspondence with his former companions, discussing the plague, astrology, or family news. These letters reveal a man torn between medicine and prediction. In the mid-16th century, despite religious tensions, his daily life in Salon remains relatively peaceful. Having already experienced the Inquisition, he remains cautious and avoids provoking the authorities. The publication of almanacs and the recognition of his patients earn him the support of the notables. The distance of Salon from major inquisitorial centers like Toulouse or Carcassonne enhances his security. His prosperity is reflected in the expansion of his house. A second laboratory is set up, with reinforced walls, cabinets, and family records to protect his recipes. Some preparations, notably against the plague, are very expensive and prized by local lords, enhancing his economic influence and sustaining regional artisans. Between 1544 and 1550, the birth of several children symbolized a rebirth after his past losses. Surrounded by his family, he managed his affairs energetically, faithful to the oaths of Montpellier. He treated both poor peasants and wealthy clients, balanced his income through agriculture and vineyards, and sold part of the wine to innkeepers. Archives confirm his regular fees, which increased in cases of plague. Anne Ponsard managed the domestic staff and ensured hygiene during epidemics, guaranteeing the household's safety. In search of balance, the physician also cultivated friendships within the learned circles of Aix-en-Provence. At the Parliament, he met with humanists and jurists to discuss the knowledge coming from Italy. In bookstores, new works on cosmography circulated, sometimes inspired by maritime discoveries, where some already argued that the Earth was not the center of the universe. He approached these ideas cautiously, preferring medical and astrological issues. His interest in astronomy remained keen. He had several annotated star charts containing mysterious indications of future planetary conjunctions. From 1548 to 1550, the city experienced a respite from epidemics. The practitioner took advantage of this to write short texts, drafts of almanacs and seasonal prognostics, and to improve his formulas for medicinal ointments and preserves. His brief collection on the preparation of rosehip preserve, now lost, still fueled his reputation. He considered publishing an expanded version, but nothing proves it ever saw the light of day. Word of mouth, nevertheless, kept alive the legend of a miraculous preserve. His children grew up, and he oversaw their education. The sons were introduced to Latin, as he was once with Avicenna and Galen. The daughters also received a basic education, considered useful by their mother. In the evenings, the family gathered in the great hall, amidst travel stories, exotic readings, and children's laughter, while the servants served spiced wine and bread. Rue Hoche, where the couple's house stood, became one of the busiest in Salon. The pentagonal tower and the activity of the stills were noted, which rumors turned into occult practices. These exaggerations, oscillating between fear and fascination, actually nourished his reputation and attracted new patients, sometimes from afar, to consult or ask for astrological predictions. Between 1544 and 1550, the doctor thus consolidated his practice, reputation, and family situation, supported by Anne Ponsard, his children, and the mill. His notoriety soon extended beyond the walls of Salon and reached neighboring provinces. It was whispered that he scrutinized political destinies, predicted upheavals, and warned against certain influences. These rumors paved the way for the next stage of his journey. When Michel de Nostradamus, known as Nostradamus, published his first almanac in 1550, he did not anticipate the success it would achieve. The almanac was then a collection gathering meteorological forecasts, agricultural advice, lunar phases, astrological information, and various remarks. Readers, both literate and popular, were especially interested in predictions related to eclipses, perceived as omens of upheaval. Settled in Salon de Provence, already renowned for his work as a physician against the plague, Nostradamus saw his print run of 9,000 copies confirm the appeal of his annual projections. He detailed seasons, harvests, possible storms or famines, always linked to zodiac signs according to the principles of medieval astrology. The almanac also contained celestial omens announcing wars, illnesses, or political troubles, sometimes associated with princely rivalries. This quasi-apocalyptic dimension responded to the curiosity of an audience seeking keys to understanding the future of Christianity. This success drew the attention of the Church. The Bishop of Sisteron examined several passages deemed too marked by astrology and placing the stars above divine providence. Rumors of censorship circulated, but the theologian Jean Chiasseron defended Nostradamus, recalling the analytical nature of his predictions. Despite these tensions, the public continued to buy the almanac. Nostradamus recorded planetary conjunctions and possible consequences on agriculture or politics, illustrated by foreign examples. His talent lay as much in the staging as in the prophetic vagueness that kept the interest alive. Readers, merchants, notables, farmers saw it as a guide to anticipate difficulties and align their daily lives with the cosmic rhythm. In 1551, he published revised and augmented editions, bolstering his notoriety. Some pages were reserved for eclipses, interpreted as harbingers of tensions between sovereigns or discords between kingdoms. Allusions to current events, the Italian wars, the Ottoman threat, reinforced the link between cosmology and politics. Critics denounced an exaggeration of phenomena, while his supporters praised his sagacity. Chiasseron recalled the continuity with medieval astrologers. Ecclesiastical controversies highlighted a major issue, distinguishing scholarly investigation from mystical prophecy. Nostradamus gradually experimented with a more cryptic writing style. Some pages of his almanacs contained enigmatic verses announcing calamities or redemption. The public, influenced by the prophetic tradition, searched for threats against France or allusions to a plague. These early quatrains, inspired by the Book of Daniel and apocalyptic visions, served as a laboratory. Religious authorities watched this evolution with suspicion, fearing occultism. His work also bore Arab influence. Trained in Montpellier, he studied Avicenna and other scholars, using their astronomical and mathematical analyses to refine his meteorological and seasonal forecasts. The Muslim eschatological culture, marked by the signs of the end times, inspired his reflections. In his almanacs of 1552 and 1553, he indirectly mentioned apocalyptic beasts and new prophets, which worried some Catholic theologians without leading to sanctions. The boundary between astrology, science, and prophecy became blurred. In 1553, he announced the appearance of a great prince destined to transform Europe, prompting various interpretations. Some saw it as Charles V, others as a spiritual leader against the Ottomans. Nostradamus left the doubt lingering, enhancing his mysterious aura. In 1554, he accentuated his Sibylline style, inspired by ancient oracles. His almanacs mixed vernacular, Latin, and Italian to conceal certain omens from censorship. The themes of the end times, fragile monarchies, and revolts were coded. Towards the end of the year, he published entire quatrains announcing the fall of a sovereign, marking the definitive passage from astrologer to prophet. By the end of 1554, his almanacs were already circulating at the French court. Ladies and counselors attempted to decipher his biblical and Sibylline allusions, particularly around the monarch of the north. New patrons sought him for private consultations, while his critics denounced the political and religious danger. Each new quatrain increased the ambiguity. Ecclesiastical mistrust grew, but the public continued to demand more revelations. In 1535, Michel de Nostradamus, known as Nostradamus, compiled several of his predictions in a work titled Les Centuries. It is a collection of quatrains, stanzas of 4 lines, published in series of 100 to provide a long-term vision of future events. Settled in Salon de Provence, he transcribed his nightly insights, his astrological calculations, and his meditations in a coded form, arousing curiosity and mistrust throughout the kingdom. His method has intrigued for centuries. One of his favorite procedures involves gazing into a medallion of water, sometimes infused with aromatic oils, reflecting the moon or candlelight. This divinatory practice, called catoptromancy, helped him enter a state of deep concentration. A physician and astrologer, he spent long nights in his dark cabinet, observing the stars and recording his cryptic visions on paper. Nostradamus also practiced a linguistic combinatorics. Fluent in Latin, Provençal, Italian, and archaic medieval French, he interwove lexical and syntactic structures, adding anagrams or distortions. Thus, a quatrain might contain Latin words, rearranged according to French grammar, or disguised Provençal expressions. This intentionally obscure method reinforced the aura of mystery and blurred the line between prophecy and poetry. The quatrains were grouped into centuries, each containing 100 predictions. This system, beyond the typographic choice, would have allowed the delimitation of temporal or thematic sequences. Some saw it as an astrological calculation, others as simple literary riddles. This particular organization prompted readers to look for hidden keys. Finally, Nostradamus used anagrams and truncated toponyms. Real places like Rome, Paris, or London appeared altered or abbreviated, making the reading complex and requiring decoding of the clues. By alternating explicit messages and veiled allusions, he maintained uncertainty. This approach aroused as much controversy as enthusiasm over time between supporters of his prophetic genius and critics denouncing his obscurity. The result of this work appeared in Lyon in 1555, a city then renowned for its editorial dynamism. The book came off the presses of Massé Bonhomme and marked a turning point in Nostradamus's literary career. Lyon, an intellectual crossroads between the North and the Mediterranean, published at that time humanist works, medical treatises, Greek or Arabic translations, and now the Centuries. This first edition, now rare, is sought after for its historical value and mystic aura. The dedication of Nostradamus is addressed to his son Caesar, born from his second marriage. The author thus inscribes his work in a familial and generational continuity. He expresses his conviction that his quatrains contain a timeless wisdom, capable of guiding readers through political and spiritual upheavals. Historians see it as the admission of an author aware of entering into legend. The reception is immediate. The book circulates in several European cities among scholars, merchants, and artisans. Printed in a limited number, it met with great echo. The public oscillates between fascination with the announcements of wars, epidemics, and disasters, and fear of reading an announced end of the world. The notoriety of Nostradamus grows, as do the critiques. Some accuse him of charlatanism, others see him as a prophet. This duality nourishes his aura. He also faced accusations of witchcraft. In a context of distrust towards heresy and magic, his ambiguous predictions intrigued ecclesiastical authorities who examined his texts. To defend himself, he invoked classical references like Lucan or Suetonius, but his hermetic style maintained suspicions. These attacks, however, did not prevent the success of the Centuries. Some satirical authors amused themselves with it. Rabelais, in his later writings, slid jabs at the nebulous visions of Nostradamus. Through irony, he highlighted the ambiguity of quatrains applicable to any crisis. This mockery foreshadowed later skeptical readings, but paradoxically strengthened the popularity of the seer by anchoring him in the collective imagination of the Renaissance. Other contemporaries recount anecdotes trying to prove or contest these predictions. One of the most known concerns, Quatrain 35 of the 1st century. According to a Bordeaux merchant, this passage announced a sudden fire, striking a city on the edge of a river. Shortly after the distribution of the Centuries, a major fire ravaged warehouses near the docks of Bordeaux, striking readers with awe. Believers saw it as proof of clairvoyance, while skeptics reminded of the frequency of fires in port cities built of wood. Although controversial, this episode illustrates the immediate reception of Nostradamus's work. Tales of coincidences pushed the public to scrutinize each quatrain for omens. Some saw a gift of divination, others the effect of imagination linking fortuitous events to obscure verses. The book quickly spread in France and then abroad, thanks to merchants and traveling scholars. Each copied or reprinted copy stirred readers' curiosity, whether they were nobles, bourgeois, or common people. The centuries became a subject of conversation at fairs and salons, and their interpretation sparked passionate debates. Enthusiasts sought to decipher anagrams and toponyms, while skeptics denounced the ambiguity of poetry, adaptable to 1,000 circumstances. The convoluted writing, references to stars, biblical and mythological images, reinforced the impression of a work situated between sacred prophecy and literary curiosity. Praises and critiques rose in response to its growing influence. The invitation extended by Henri II and Catherine de Médicis in the summer of 1555 marked a turning point for Michel de Nostradamus. A physician and author of already circulated almanacs and quatrains, he attracted the curiosity of the court. Henri II, the second son of François de Fane, had reigned since 1547 and continued his father's Italian policy. Catherine, of Florentine origin and a follower of Renaissance divinatory practices, was the main instigator of this summons, hoping that astrology would secure the future of her numerous offspring. In August 1555, a messenger informed Nostradamus in Salon de Provence that he was expected at the Louvre. Rumors announced that he would be able to predict the political fate of the kingdom and that of the royal children. His journey to Paris took him through Lyon, a hub of humanist printing that he was already familiar with. This time, he did not come to publish an almanac, but to face the physicians and astrologers established near the throne. At the court, astrology was perceived as a prestigious art. If Nostradamus managed to convince, he could become an official figure. Having arrived in Paris, he was introduced to the Louvre, probably in August 1555. The capital gathered clergy, officers of justice, and scholars linked to the Sorbonne. Nostradamus had to prove his medical and astrological skills. Catherine requested precise horoscopes for her children. François, born in 1544, the future François II. Elizabeth, born in 1545, future wife of Philip II of Spain. Claude, born in 1547. Charles, born in 1550, the future Charles IX. Henri, born in 1551, future Duke of Angoulême, and Marguerite, born in 1553, the future Queen of Navarre. Louis, born between Claude and Charles, died in infancy. Henri Estienne, more reserved, was mainly interested in the influence of the stars on his campaigns and treaties. But Nostradamus aroused distrust. Some courtiers labeled him a charlatan. Galenic physicians feared his competition, and established astrologers like Morin or Leovitius criticized his calculations. Renowned surgeons like Ambroise Paré or classic physicians such as Reims also contested his rise. Over the months, the cordiality between Nostradamus and the court's scholars grew strained with each doctrinal divergence. Michel practiced an astrology mixing Arabic and European traditions, associating the zodiac, biblical, and ancient references. He read planetary conjunctions in rare books inherited from his grandfather or acquired in Italy. These tensions did not alienate Catherine de Médicis, who relied on his calculations to set dates for baptisms or marriages. He then wrote several horoscopes, some of which mentioned predictions of difficult births, other royal children, and major political changes in the late 1550s. The court buzzed with a rumor. Nostradamus had warned of the dangers of jousting, a passion of King Henri II. In 1559, a tournament organized for the marriage of Elizabeth de Valois and Philip II of Spain would cost him his life. the hypothesis of a prediction circulated before the tragedy. A quatrain mentioning a fatal duel where the elder would be injured in the eye had allegedly been given to Catherine. It is unknown, however, if this text was communicated before or after the accident. The queen, worried, was said to have begged the king to avoid tournaments, but Henri II rejected these warnings out of pride and refusal to yield to the omen. Around 1556 or 1557, while the court was in Blois, Catherine summoned Nostradamus at night. By candlelight, she searched his quatrains for an announcement regarding the king's health and the future of the realm. Despite Henri's incredulity, the royal couple was gripped by the fear of religious confrontations and noble revolts. Catherine, fearing the influence of Luther's theses and future wars of religion, read these verses under the moonlight, convinced that this light would enhance their clarity. Nostradamus at the court did not limit himself to astrology. He also treated the king. His remedies for migraines and fevers opposed Ronce's Galenic medicine, who criticized the emphasis placed on the stars. Ambroise Paré, the king's surgeon, favored operative techniques and was vexed by the credit given to the astrologer. These tensions were mostly expressed through verbal jabs at the table or in front of royal secretaries. Nostradamus sometimes soothed these debates by using classical erudition to flatter the king and queen. Despite the tensions, Catherine de' Medici is keen on formalizing the role of Nostradamus. His advice offers an original perspective on family health and state management. In 1559, during a tournament, Henry II is mortally wounded in the eye by the lance of the Count of Montgomery. Catherine, panicked, becomes regent for her adolescent son, Francis II. Many see in this tragedy the fulfillment of a prophecy by Nostradamus. His reputation grows, and in Parisian salons, he is perceived as a visionary capable of guiding the young royalty. In 1560, he receives the official title of physician and ordinary counselor to the king. The decision comes more from Catherine than from the weak and impressionable Francis II. Nostradamus, now free to reside at the court, gains certain prestige. But his role remains delicate. He must navigate a nobility divided by the religious question and wary of an astrologer close to the queen, already reputed for her occult inclinations. Between 1559 and 1560, the death of Henry II plunges France into a period of regencies, religious tensions, and threats of revolt. The Protestants challenge Catholic domination, and the idea that Nostradamus might influence the court draws attention. His origins as a converted Jew fuel suspicions among Orthodox Catholics, some even accusing him of witchcraft. Yet Catherine still supports him. She believes that in uncertain times, it is better to keep a counselor who can foresee upcoming dangers close. Rivalries with Galenist physicians, particularly Ronce, persist. During consultations for Francis II, Ronce examines the royal pulse and proposes concoctions, while Nostradamus insists on the influence of Mars and Saturn. Catherine de' Medici listens to both opinions and sometimes seeks a compromise, combining Galenic medicine and medical astrology. Ambroise Paré, a master of modern surgery, remains skeptical of celestial predictions. The court becomes a space where several medical approaches confront each other, reflecting the debates of the Renaissance. Meanwhile, other astrologers like Morin and Leovicius watch the sky to predict the kingdom's future. Morin, a proponent of strict mathematical astrology, criticizes Nostradamus's quatrains as hermetic, reminding that astrology should rely on precise calculations and the methods of Ptolemy or Guichard. Leovitius uses eclipse tables and publishes treatises on planetary influences and political revolutions. Both reproach Nostradamus for an approach too literary, imbued with biblical and Kabbalistic symbols absorbed in Italy. In the evening, doctors and astrologers engage in heated debates. Some see Nostradamus as a visionary, others as a speculative but non-scientific mind. Nostradamus seeks balance. He continues his prognostications in almanacs, discreetly published in Lion, but avoids overtly exposing his ideas in Paris to not offend the Galenists. In Ceylon, he composes new quatrains, whose deliberate ambiguity maintains his fame. The more cryptic they are, the more interpretations they provoke. Catherine de' Medici's protection ensures his safety. As long as she believes in him, his rivals can't oust him. But this position requires him to moderate his confidence and avoid too direct contradictions at the risk of being accused of charlatanism. The religious context further complicates his situation. In the late 1550s, tensions between Catholics and Protestants intensify. Clergymen monitor his publications, suspecting heretical or Kabbalistic influences. Some courtiers speak of astral magic, and the Parliament of Paris examines his writings, ready to intervene if his influence seems to threaten political or religious orthodoxy. The court is divided between Catherine's desire to consult him and magistrates' intent to limit his prophecies. Aware of these perils, Nostradamus ensures to remain protected by the powerful while cultivating the occult aura that feeds his celebrity. When Francis II died prematurely in December 1560, leaving the throne to his brother Charles IX, under the regency of Catherine, the situation remained tense. Rumors claimed that Nostradamus had foreseen the short destiny of the king, emphasizing his fragility. Some saw this as confirmation of his powers, others as a post hoc extrapolation. Already appointed as physician and ordinary counselor, Michel retained the queen's favor, even though his influence depended on the stability of the throne and the rivalries between factions. While astrologer Morin and astronomer Leovitius continued their calculations, Nostradamus seems comforted in his uniqueness, but the Galenic doctors, led by Roncey, opposed his writings, which they considered obscure and dangerous. Paré, for his part, confined himself to surgery and allowed Catherine her divinatory inclinations as long as his domain remained unthreatened. The royal entourage remained divided. The Guys, fervent Catholics, feared the destabilizing effect of prophecies that could fuel dissent. The Montmorencies, more pragmatic, found it useful to know the opinion of a man listened to by the Queen. Thus, Nostradamus became alternately an ally or a suspect, depending on the alliances. Between 1555 and 1560, his progressive confrontation with the court of France solidified his place in history. The initially benevolent reception was followed by fears and rivalries, reinforced after the sudden death of Henry II in 1559, interpreted as a validation of his prophecies. His title of physician and counselor to the king in 1560 established his legitimacy without putting an end to tensions. Doctors loyal to Galen, such as Roncey, refused to yield, while Morin and Leovitius still claimed the legitimate interpretation of the stars. From 1560 onwards, Michel de Nostradam's health deteriorated. Retired in Salon de Provence, He suffered from gout and arthritis. In a field of medicine still dominated by the Galenic tradition and herbalism, he took an interest in remedies from afar, such as Chinese rhubarb imported by Venetian merchants. Convinced of its purgative virtues, he added it to his diet, in addition to Provençal ointments of lavender or rosemary. He hoped to relieve his pains by combining Oriental practices and local recipes. Meanwhile, he was writing Les Présages, short and practical almanacs, published annually or semi-annually. They combined weather forecasts, celestial movements, and advice for daily life, sowing, marriages, agricultural work. Astrology occupied a central place, but Nostradamus also added his empirical observations. At the same time, he wrote the Traité des confitures. Passionate about sweets, he experimented with new preservation methods using sugar, more accessible thanks to Mediterranean trade. The treatise presented recipes for quince, lemon, or cherry jams and combined culinary technique and medical purpose. Nostradamus no longer limited himself to the centuries. He became a popularizer, exploring practical subjects supported by influential Provençal families, but criticized by some doctors attached to Galenic orthodoxy. Yet his success remained considerable. Each new présage was eagerly awaited, and Salon de Provence became an active center of dissemination, attracting readers, copyists, and the curious. In the midst of his activities, Nostradamus maintained regular correspondence with personalities from the kingdom. He wrote notably to the Chancellor of the University of Toulouse, an institution renowned for its openness to humanist ideas, where there was debate at the time about the circulation of humors and the use of exotic compounds in pharmacology. His letters, punctuated with astrological allusions, mentioned the prevention of a new wave of plague and the possible organization of a colloquium of scholars from Italy. These exchanges, politically cautious, aimed to advance medical knowledge without breaking with Galenic tradition. Meanwhile, Nostradamus was in dialogue with Christophe Plantin, a renowned printer from Antwerp, known for his religious and scientific works. Plantin was interested in almanacs and astrological compilations, and rumors suggested that Nostradamus was considering entrusting him with an enriched version of his almanacs, illustrated and allegorical. The goal was to broaden his readership, from the Flemish merchant to the English gentleman, via the Parisian academic, thus reflecting the European dimension of Renaissance printing. Despite his international renown, Nostradamus remains perceived as a wise practitioner and an astrologer sought after by the French nobility. He is consulted to draft astrological charts or to advise on favorable dates for ceremonies. While court physicians sometimes exhibit a certain jealousy towards him, the trust granted to him by great ladies and royal advisors mitigates tensions. Salon de Provence thus becomes a place of consultations frequented by officers, royal secretaries, and clergy members curious about the divinatory arts. At the same time, he continues the elaboration of the 7th century. The first 6, already published, have sparked debates and controversies, visions of the future for some, inconsistencies for others. Methodically, he composes his quatrains from biblical fragments, apocalyptic traditions, and Neoplatonic texts, using anagrams, distorted place names, and ambiguities intended to avoid religious censorship. Around 1564, he works nights to finish new quatrains, aided by notes from Italian correspondents familiar with Christian Kabbalah. The sheets circulating between Lyon and Avignon reveal a more hermetic, almost cryptic style, evoking bloody conflicts and religious reforms. This direction worries the church and reinforces his reputation as a controversial prophet, prompting him to choose his printers with caution. His engagement with the court of France, initiated under Henry II, leads him to prepare a missive intended for the Duke of Anjou, the future Henry III. According to witnesses, this sealed writing contained warnings about the future of the kingdom, marked by religious wars, and recommended that the prince prepare for a difficult reign, surrounded by civil conflicts and uncertain alliances. No official copy of this text has been preserved. Bits of information filter through Nostradamus' entourage, notably his secretary Jean-Aimé de Chavigny, who mentions several decades later a document condemning interfaith violence and calling for tolerance towards Protestants. While Nostradamus remains discreet in his public prognostications, he addresses in this private letter the religious crisis already dividing several provinces. Having seen the ravages of the plague, he perceives these divisions as another plague, social and spiritual, threatening the balance of the kingdom. In this context, his health deteriorates. Gout makes walking difficult and prolonged positions painful. Arthritis affects his hands and complicates writing. The court physicians, following Galen, prescribe bloodletting and herbal decoctions, while Nostradamus experiments with Chinese rhubarb, laudanum, or St. John's wort, without real relief. Despite these sufferings, he corrects the proofs of his almanacs with the support of booksellers from Avignon and Lyon. He is described as bending over his astrological tables all night long, scrutinizing Saturn, Mars, and various conjunctions. While many religious figures disapprove of these practices, others see them as an extension of the Hermetic tradition, interpreting creation to read human destiny. His correspondences from Salon de Provence testify to a sharp mind. In a letter to the Chancellor of the University of Toulouse, he recommends observing plague symptoms, improving hygiene through running water points, and being wary of diseases during gatherings. In a letter to the printer Plantin, he discusses the inclusion of new astrological engravings and the necessity of neat layout to make the work more attractive. His close ones report that, despite the fatigue, Nostradamus surrounds himself with manuscripts dealing with ancient cosmology, Oriental religions, and Florentine alchemy. He also consults collections of medicinal plants translated into Latin, hoping to find a remedy. When he can write without pain, he composes new quatrains, laden with symbols intended to be understood only by initiates. This taste for secrecy would come from his family heritage, between converted Jewish traditions and Christian esotericism. In 1565, often immobilized by gout, he is carried on a stretcher by his servants, but continues to wander through his garden. There, he selects the best herbs and rose bushes to prepare medicinal ointments and preserves. In this refuge, he meditates on time and the fragility of existence, while his disciples claim that he shows no resignation. As the months go by, his life seems to be reaching a final cycle. His 6 centuries remain widely read and feed the anticipation of a 7th. The presages are still published, and the almanacs are being considered with the printer, Plantin. But the religious tensions in France are worsening, fueling fears and misunderstandings. In this context, Nostradamus remains a figure between the quest for knowledge and the awareness of an uncertain royal destiny. On the night of July 1st to 1566, Michel de Nostradamus, known as Nostradamus, was in his home in Salon de Provence, weakened by violent bouts of gout. For several weeks, his relatives, including his wife Anne Ponsard and their children, were worried about his condition. According to tradition, he reportedly told a friend that he would not be found alive at dawn. The house, surrounded by a medicinal garden, was immersed in a silent atmosphere where servants and family members busied themselves around the sick man. Despite the religious and political turmoil that stirred France, Salon remained a refuge for him. Local folklore reports that on this last night, he held an almost burned-out candle, a symbol of his life ready to fade away. Some claim that at dawn, the church bells rang strangely, and that the position of the stars announced an inevitable end. In the morning of July 2nd, 1566, Nostradamus was found lifeless in his room. His prediction of his own death was perceived as a sign of his extraordinary abilities. The news spread quickly in Provence and beyond. In Salon, his funeral was quickly organized, following his last wishes, with the conviction that his memory would be amplified by legend. The funeral took place at the Cordelier Church, founded several decades earlier by the Franciscan order and known for the sobriety of its architecture. The funeral procession, composed of relatives, friends, villagers, and dignitaries in dark clothes, also included doctors who came to salute an exceptional colleague. Inside, a modest catafalque was surrounded by Latin psalms, marking the esteem held for Michel. Before dying, Nostradamus composed his own epitaph in Latin, highlighting his vocation as a doctor and astrologer. Engraved shortly after the ceremony, it combined modesty and pride with a discreet allusion to his prophecies. Becoming a point of curiosity, it reinforced the image of a man blending science and mysticism. In 1700, his tomb was reportedly desecrated by looters seeking valuable objects. Legend has it that his skull was found with a gold coin minted with the date of his death, a detail still debated. The episode, quickly closed by the authorities, contributed to the legendary reputation of the prophet. Travelers then spread embellished stories. Sailors spoke of will-o'-the-wisps over the grave. Merchants saw it as an omen. Popular belief took root, despite the skepticism of scholars. The first biographer, Jean-Aimé de Chavigny, a disciple of Nostradamus, embarked shortly after the prophet's death on gathering correspondence, fragments of almanacs, and oral testimonies. He wanted to protect the memory of his master and prove that he was more than a seer, a humanist spirit nourished by the Renaissance. But his sources being fragile, Chavigny embellished certain episodes, still sparking debate. The biography written by Jean-Aimé de Chavigny reinforced the notion that Nostradamus had predicted his own death. The work listed various prodigies meant to establish his credibility, reporting testimonies from nobles, merchants, and nuns. The nighttime scene of July 2nd, 1566, where Michel announced that he would not be found alive in the morning, held a central place. Chavigny sometimes cited documents found nowhere else, which aroused the suspicion of skeptics. But the publication met a wide echo and contributed to shaping the image of an infallible prophet. Gradually, a cult emerged, with readers seeking answers to their worries in his writings. This exaltation took place in a context marked by the search for supernatural signs. The wars of religion, which would soon ravage France, drove many to seek prophets to give meaning to the upheavals. The aura of Nostradamus was thus strengthened, Pamphlets and stories circulated, glorifying the man who supposedly predicted the fate of the powerful and even his own death. The intelligentsia remained divided. Some admired his knowledge, others denounced cryptic symbols impossible to interpret. Yet, the myth continued to progress. In the popular imagination, his disappearance became the ultimate example of a man warned by his visions. It was said that he had greeted his disciples before dying, murmuring one last prophecy. The Church of the Cordeliers kept a record of it in their registers, although some documents have disappeared. His contemporaries, struck by the miraculous halo that already surrounded his name, consolidated these accounts. Little by little, Michel de Nostradamus merged with Nostradamus, the man and the legend becoming inseparable. Scholars found themselves facing a maze of unverifiable accounts. Over the decades, his figure grew, nourished by the idea that his death was an infallible omen. His quatrains were reread in light of this destiny deemed exceptional, and many saw in them a confirmation of his gifts. Printers multiplied augmented editions of his writings, often accompanied by anecdotes about his last moments. Chavigny, the main architect of his legacy, presented him as the ultimate prophet, capable of unraveling the secrets of time. In Salon de Provence, pilgrims came to visit his tomb. The image of the astrologer who anticipated his own disappearance resonated through the centuries and expanded his mystical heritage. In 17th century Europe, the figure of Michel de Nostradamus, known as Nostradamus, continues to provoke debate. The Centuries, published at the end of the 16th century, gained popularity in the following decades. Faced with political and religious turmoil, contemporaries see echoes of their situation in them. During the Fronde, between 1648 and 1653, pamphlets took up some quatrains to see in them a condemnation of Cardinal Mazarin. Clandestine printers distributed brochures associating his name with malevolent figures, giving the prophecies a subversive scope. The Frondeurs used them to legitimize their resistance to royal power. After the end of the Fronde and the consolidation of Louis XIV's authority, this fervor diminished, but the reputation of Nostradamus remained established as a tool for manipulating public opinion. Archives retain edicts banning seditious texts containing remixed fragments of the prophecies, perceived as threatening both religiously and in terms of security. The Counter-Reformation, notably driven by the Jesuits, also targeted these writings. Perceived as speculative, the prophecies were seen as fertile ground for heresy. From the beginning of the 17th century, astrology and alchemy came under censorship, and Nostradamus was monitored. Roman and French authorities examined his quatrains to track elements contrary to the doctrine, Protestant sympathies, or millenarian calls. Part of the work was placed on the index, though not systematically enforced. Expurgated versions, like the Cologne edition of 1627, circulated by removing or rewriting passages deemed dangerous. These revisions retained the poetic form, but neutralized bold interpretations. This episode illustrates the ecclesiastical elite's distrust towards prophecy, deemed attractive to the people, but risky to religious orthodoxy. In the 18th century, the Age of Enlightenment, notably in France, approached Nostradamic heritage with a critical spirit. Voltaire, a champion of reason and sarcasm, mentions the Provençal prophet in a mocking tone, highlighting the ambiguity of the predictions which he deemed adaptable to any event. Pierre Bayle, a skeptical mind and scourer of superstitions, was more interested in the reasons for the lasting success of these quatrains. He noted that credulity and the fear of the unknown pushed many readers to see in them the confirmation of their own fantasies. This approach paved the way for a sociological reading of prophecy, centered not on veracity, but on the reception and impact of the texts. At this time, Nostradamus' legacy was divided between mystical supporters and rationalists who denounced the emptiness of his predictions. The phenomenon soon crosses French borders thanks to translators and publishers. Theophilus de Garancière, a French physician exiled to England for religious reasons, published an English translation of the Centuries in London in 1672, accompanied by commentaries for a Protestant readership. Convinced of Nostradamus' prophetic inspiration, he offered links with the English monarchy and religious tensions. England, marked by the Civil War and the Restoration, received these texts with interest. The Centuries then crossed the Atlantic with the colonists. In a religiously fragmented America influenced by millenarian sects, they fit into an apocalyptic trend. Some preachers announce the end of times and rely on these quatrains to reinforce the fervor of anxious believers. Thus, the prophecies cross oceans and become catalysts for fears or hopes in communities eager for celestial signs. This transcontinental journey firmly establishes Nostradamus' reputation in the Anglo-Saxon imagination. In the 19th century, fascination with esotericism and prophecies persists despite the rationalist legacy. The Romantic movement rehabilitates the mystical dimension of culture and exalts symbols, dreams, and the imagination. In France, Victor Hugo and Gérard de Nerval take an interest in Nostradamus' writings. Hugo, passionate about the polysemy of language and the mysteries of destiny, highlights the poetic tone of the quatrains. Nerval, fascinated by the linguistic overlaps mixing Latin, Provençal, and Old French, sees in them a universe close to waking dreams. For the Romantics, these texts become literary material conducive to the quest for hidden truths and the evocation of an ancestral past. Thus, Nostradamus is beginning to be seen not just as a suspect prophet, but also as a cryptic poet worthy of admiration. In post-revolutionary Europe, the rise of nationalism reconfigures the political interpretations of Nostradamus. Monarchists, seeking to justify a legitimate restoration, draw from the centuries. Under the Second Empire, Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon I, takes an interest in the prophecies, convinced they carry a favorable message for his reign. Bonapartist newspapers mention quatrains about a capet at Reims, read as confirmation of a dynastic return. Anagrams and enigmatic formulas open the way to all sorts of interpretations, fueling both credulity and distrust. This fascination, nonetheless, helps keep Nostradamus at the forefront of culture, reinforcing the rumor that the emperor drew inspiration from these cryptic texts. In 1914, World War I rekindles the popularity of the prophecies. In the trenches, brochures and pamphlets cite Nostradamus to justify each side. In France, patriots announce the fall of Germany, the Black Eagle, doomed to destruction. In Germany, nationalists present France as the proud rooster destined for collapse. These verses become psychological weapons used to support the morale of soldiers or to undermine the enemies. Some esoteric circles see them as confirmation of a great purge, heralding a new era. For many, the survivors of the carnage find in these old predictions the echo of long foreshadowed chaos. Thus, in these dark years, Nostradamic verses fuel fears, hopes, and propaganda.